Do you see like an increase in brands wanting to advertise on live?
We are. And there's a creator specifically named Shimba, who's like nicknamed the king of live streaming. He did a 12-hour live stream, and guess how much revenue he was able to drive within those 12 hours? 305 million US dollars.
This is Creative Disruption, the intersection where entertainment, data, and creativity meet. Here's your host, Ricky Ray Butler.
Thanks, everyone, for tuning in to Creative Disruption. I'm Ricky Ray Butler. I'm super pumped what we're going to be discussing today. We have on the podcast with us Brent Rivera and Max Levine, Brent's manager and business partner. Hey, guys, thank you so much for joining.
Of course. Thanks for having us. This is fun. Yeah.
You know, it's one of those times where this is a very interesting experience for me because, Brent, I've followed your career from the very beginning. I was doing creator brand collaborations, probably in total about 15 years. But I started my company Plaid, around 12 years ago in 2009, and I remember you surfacing up in 2012, and I believe were you 15 then?
I think I was 13. I think I was as young as 13. Yeah, it was definitely early on because I was just getting into high school at that time.
Oh, well, that's amazing. Now we've done collaborations in the past with you and Max. With a lot of games, as well as we've done a couple of movies, I believe, as well. And it's been interesting just to see how you were one of the pioneers in the creator universe to really be cross-platform really fast. I would say like you and like Zach King were the ones that were always on top of it. Whenever you saw a new community, you went in and integrated. If you don't mind, I would love to hear just a little bit of a background of like from your perspective, your history. Like how did you start out? What platform did you start on? And then how did you start prioritizing other content on other platforms?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, especially now. I think creativity is number one, and content is just the most important to me. So, when starting out, say when starting off on Vine, and all the creators started really popping off on Vine, I really buckled down, and I was like, all right, I'm going to make a Vine every single day, and I don't care like if it hits or if it doesn't. Like I'm just going to do it because getting content out there is the most important thing, and over time, it worked out. I think obviously on Vine, I think I ended up with 8 million followers on Vine, and that obviously came to an end. But like you said, it's super important once these new platforms come up to really jump on it early. And a lot of creators are kind of timid to do that because I feel like creators sometimes like think like there's other motives maybe behind it, or like they don't want to, I don't know, jump on something too early because it might be a waste of time. But really, I mean, it's a smart thing to do to like jump on something quick. I mean, I know TikTok was Musical.ly before, and so I was already on Musical.ly. So I already kind of had a head start when TikTok started, really growing. And so just things like that, I always make sure to look out for, whether it's the next big app or whether it's the next big creator. Basically, that's kind of how I do things.
Yeah, I mean, you've really been one of like the popular creators. I mean, you've always been very open to collaborating, mm-hmm. and connecting and working with other creators. How much do you attribute that collaboration to growth and to a lot of your success?
Yeah, collaboration is really important. You have to collaborate with those creators that kind of share the same interests and same audience as you. That's super, super important. And also it's also important to kind of establish a little group that you kind of, can rely on. And that's what I didn't have for a long time because I wasn't in LA and I wasn't like kind of around like a lot of these say Viners or, whatever early on. And I kind of lacked that. And from there, I was like, how can I kind of get my own group, but still kind of live in Orange County, an hour away from LA? And that's when I had the idea, what if I kind of started like a little group, and just, sign creators and basically kind of like make this like collaborative team, and we work together and make content together.
Wow. So it sounds like you've like kind of created a science to this, because I mean, if I'm hearing you correctly, you've started like an incubator, like a group of people where you all collaborate and you grow your businesses together.
Yes.
And Max, I believe you've helped partner. You've been working with Brent for almost 10 years.
Yeah, well, I think it's been 7 or 8-ish at this point, but yeah, so, I kind of got into this.
That's still a long time for anyone that's listening.
It's like
7 or 8 years in this new like creator economy is like, that's like a lifetime
so,
for a manager. So it means Max has done a really good job.
I don't have any gray hairs yet, surprisingly, but no, like it's been like 3 or 4 cycles of just like waves of content and platforms and creators, and I think it's obviously not like we've been doing this for like 30 years, but I think you learn so much in a short period of time, and you can like apply that experience and those learnings. So like what is going on now. So like, to be honest, like history repeats itself, and maybe instead of every 50 years, it's every like 1.5 years. And I think we can just apply that to what we're doing to stay ahead of the curve, or even just how we plan things. Because again, you can kind of see what's happening beforehand. So it's kind of fun. And even if you don't know exactly, like you can have the ability to know how to test things out or experiment, just so you can constantly, try to evolve and stay relevant.
So that's interesting. So you say, history repeats itself, and you look at it every 1.5 years. I really feel that. I feel like, as we worked with creators and we worked across all these like different platforms, that everything's consistently evolving. Like, in my time, being in this business over a decade, I swear we've experienced at least like 8 bubbles that have popped, from the MCNs to even some of like the, platforms connecting creators and brands that end up just not working out. That's interesting. And so do you have a system like in place, like every 1.5 years, where you just try to see what's changing and then how you take advantage of that change? How does that work?
Yeah. So like, I think like we kind of look at things from like the content perspective, right? And like content is everything. Like I don't want to say it's king, but like it really is. It's kind of corny, but it's true. And like now it's like, okay, if the creators of the channels, like the buck stops there, right? So whether it's like the platform, like the MCNs or the platforms or the influencer marketing platforms, like we know, okay, like if you have the creators or you have the channels, like that's the core of it. And for us, we really just preach sustainability, right? Where it's like, if we find someone and start working with them and they have literally 500 subscribers on YouTube, they're probably going to grow very quickly and probably grow several million year over year. But we're very just particular just about, how they do that, and just like their approach and how they view content. And like, we don't want them to burn out, right? Because like, I think so many creators, like they're really famous now or in the moment, but 98% of them fall off over the course of, 2, 3, 4 years. And like, we want to be in the 2%. And like, how do we optimize for that? Because Brent is not even just in the 2%, like the 0.1% in terms of people. Like you have like Logan Paul or like Dobrik or even Mr. Beast, people who've been around for like half a decade to a decade. And like, how do you take that insight that like he's, accumulated throughout that period of time and try to apply it to the new people that we're working with? Just so like, we're not, investing in one hit wonders. Right. So that's kind of how we view it.
So what is some of that insight that, I guess you could like give other creators advice on staying relevant? Like Brent, what have you learned? Like, what have you noticed? Like, are there any patterns or any data that you follow to make it so you stay relevant, always doing the newest thing?
Of course. There's so much stuff. I think when it comes to, obviously content, that comes first. So I'm very particular with their content and how they do it and how they, what it looks like and the final product and everything. And they know that I have pretty high expectations for what it looks like. But also at the same time, there's things that, could be seen as like more like, not dirty work, but like things that we have to do just to kind of do, like, okay, maybe right now Instagram isn't, posting Instagram pictures doesn't necessarily translate into like, a new audience, but you kind of have to do it, because maybe eventually, something like Reels will come out and it did. And now like, okay, now we're in a better position now because we were already kind of set up because we had to do, what we had to do before. So yeah, I mean, I think a lot of things need to be learned. And I think it takes, honestly, from what I've seen, I've been working with the Stokes twins and Ben Azelard. I've been working with them for about 5 years now. Oh,
No,
wait,
it's been like, I guess almost 4.
4?
Yeah, almost 4.
4 years. And I think at this point, I can safely say that they are in a really good place. Like they have learned a lot, and like they are doing really good things that like it's impressing me, and it's blowing me. Like it just blowing my expectations out of the water. Like I am super proud. And so I think by that 3-4 year mark is when they really start to like get the ball rolling and start to run.
That's a lot of patience, both on your side and on their part, to make that happen. How many creators have you collaborated with where you've helped, build their careers, with content?
So right now we have 10 creators. And, again, some have been signed for, 4 years, it has been less, but, every single creator that we have kind of brought on and collaborated with has been amazing. I mean, there has been nothing that, no red flags, nothing that, made me, everything has been honestly so good, so great. And I'm really thankful for it, but also at the same time, like I feel like to have a team like this around, for everyone, it helps everyone, it also helps my career too. I mean, like, literally without them in these last 3 years, I wouldn't be the creator I am now because they've helped so much.
That's amazing. You're obviously doing something right, because there's been a lot of other creators out there, and I won't mention their names, that have tried doing similar things, and it's kind of blown up in their faces. And there's always been controversy. Things weren't managed the right way from a business perspective or from a human perspective. And what do you do to make it so, you can keep the collaboration going long term without getting tired of each other?
Yeah, I think that comes with, I think everyone, that I'm collaborating with right now, I think they have, I think they respect, opinions, they respect criticism, and like they know that we're all here for the same reason, and that's to make good content, make people happy, and and work with each other and to make that work. So, everyone has the same, very similar goals here, and we all understand each other and we all communicate with each other. And it's not drama based. We're not trying to, create the next drama channel or be, in that whole scene. Like this is strictly like, it's a pretty serious thing. This is a big opportunity for everyone that comes on, and they understand that. And I think that's what kind of keeps this ball rolling is we know like how lucky we are, and we have such a good group of people, and I think everyone just works together, and it's great.
I think it's obvious that you have some hidden leader skills that's helping with all of this, because one, you're working with a big group of creators that all have their own egos, and one thing with creators that are different than like working with actors or producers, you literally are in charge of everything, and it can make it so personalities be a lot more intense. You're in charge of the entire pie. You're not a piece of the pie. You're not getting told what to do. You have to build it on your own and be data driven and like build a business around your content. And to be able to be there and mentor all these people, I'm sure it's very rewarding and fulfilling, like you mentioned, with the Stokes twins and some of your other partners. But it's got to be very complicated and difficult. That's one of the reasons why my businesses have thrived in the creator space, is because we were able to find areas of opportunity where we could bring service to both creators and brands. And then on the TubeBuddy side, helping creators be data driven and growing their audiences and their revenues. But working this close day to day with 10 creators, I think most managers and agents would have a really hard time, and you're much more than that. You're actually a business partner and mentor. Do you ever plan on like writing a book about leadership in the creator space? Because like I think you probably could.
I think it comes down to, I can relate to them. I've been in their shoes, I've been in their position, at whatever point they are in their career, and I could give good advice, and I can be there for them when they need it. And I always tell them, I'm like, if you ever need a break or if you ever feel burnout, we have your back. Like, not only do I feel like, as much as they rely on, say, the group, like I rely the same. Like I think that everyone understands that, without each other, we wouldn't be where we are right now. And, we are strongest when working together. And I think, obviously there's going to be things that pop up that might, that need to be talked about, and that always happens with anything. But, we do it in an orderly manner. We make it happen and it works out. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it definitely takes a little bit of patience, but at the same time, like, everyone's so good. Everyone's like adds so much to the group. And I'm truly really lucky to be like with the group of people that I'm with.
Oh, that's awesome. You're doing a lot of stuff and you're, building a really big business. And Max, you mentioned earlier that this incubator, what you're doing with these different creators and channels is just a really small, piece of the overall, like, I guess, puzzle that you and Brent are building together. Can you talk about, your ambitions and what your plans are doing in building your media business?
Yeah, so like we kind of view it as like the personalities or the people that we work with, they're kind of key to everything, right? Because you kind of need like an engine where the engine is the content and the audience. And like, if you don't have that, like it's kind of stale or like nothing's going to come in or out, like you're pretty much capped. So we kind of view what we're building as a personality driven media company. And I think that term has become more relevant the past few years with like Barstool Sports and Face Clan and just like a few other companies in the space. But we kind of feel like we have an open lane where, maybe they're focused on sports and gambling and esports and gaming. And I guess like our creators or our content is very like Disney meets MTV, where it's like, it's very like brand friendly, it makes people happy, it's not like super controversial and it's pretty mainstream, honestly. So like the core part is like Brent and like really everyone in our main like ecosystem collaborating and just like creating their own content. And it's like, okay, cool. Like, how do we add on more to this? So like we launched our own media brand called Amp World, which is like our content brand. So we just hit over 1 million on YouTube and we've just been pushing that probably in the last 6 months, specifically. And we have well over 1 million on TikTok and close to 500,000 on Instagram. Now it's like, okay, cool. Like, how do we build other properties? So we're going to get more and more into original content. And I think the goal is like, how do we build out like a slate of original programming or like original characters or shows that maybe feature our creators, but it's more so like company produced. And that way it's like, okay, we're diversifying as a business, but we're also getting more into like owned IP. And that's how you like have value, So that's really kind of how we view things. But again, it's a new and interesting business model. And I think we're always trying to figure it out. And but yeah, like it's kind of fun to kind of, evolve towards that.
As you look at like owned IP, are you going to take more of like a direct to consumer like model, or are you hoping to create this content and strike a deal with Netflix or Amazon? Yeah,
so there's obviously, I don't like the linear, but there's more just like the traditional production, and we might partner with like a showrunner if there's an interesting show or two that we want to develop. But I think it's more so digital. Like these guys do an incredible job like building digitally native audiences. So it's like, okay, like how do you build a show? I don't want to like say something without Brent being upset at me, but like for instance, like what if you were to create a superhero on social media and the superhero collaborates with the creators and he's a part of this like Amp World universe that we have. But we just hire an actor who's portraying the superhero character and we kind of build out a storyline about like how he meets Brent or the other creators and he starts filming with them. And that's kind of his character arc in this entire universe. And it's doing different things like that strategically that makes sense. And yeah, like again, like we could do shows or direct consumer products. Like that's something that's obviously there as well. We just feel like our bread and butter is content orientated. So like, why not build content orientated IP?
Wow, that's amazing. Brent, a question I have for you. How do you best listen to your viewers? How do you know how to optimize and to keep them happy?
I think it's, obviously I love to listen to the audience, and I like to take, the comments and really read them and be like, okay, like how can I improve, but I think at the end of the day, it comes down to, my peers and like the people that I've like even like grown up with and like that still that watch my videos. And I always ask them like, every time I post a video on YouTube every week, I ask my friends, I'm like, what did you think? Like, what do you think can improve? And like, be real. Like, could you watch it? And what point were you bored? Like, and I'm always looking. Like, it doesn't hurt my feelings, when people say, yo, that thing that you did, sucked or is boring or whatever. I think the biggest thing that I want to do on YouTube right now as a creator is I don't want to be just a YouTuber. And I think I've kind of passed that point. Like, I'm passionate in creating, and I think I want to be bigger than like I want my content to be bigger to someone than just another YouTube video. It should inspire someone, and it should make someone feel something. It should give them emotion. It should give them every different type of emotion there is every single video. And I think that's really what I'm honing in on is making someone feel something when they watch a video. And I think that's how that's what people want, and that's what people will tell their friends about. And if you're making good content and it's entertaining and it gives people emotion, they will tell their friends, and everyone will come and watch it. And so that's kind of where I'm going with it. And I think I always try and listen to what people have to say. And obviously I don't listen to everything. Like, I'm not going to, if someone says, hey man, like you got to stop doing like the games, like I think it's stupid. Like, it obviously has to make sense, but I do listen. I do listen a lot. And I think it's a really important part of creating is listening to the audience. Did it work? Did it not? If it didn't, what can we do to kind of adjust and make it better?
That's amazing. So basically you take a qualitative research route where you do interviews or like little focus groups with your friends who you trust that are going to be very candid with you. And then you just, sift through the data. You figure out, okay, I'll take that advice. I will throw that other advice out the window.
Yeah. I mean, every week is a new slate. I think with what I'm doing, we sit down every week. We have kind of, it's called a think sesh, right? And it's kind of like a writer's room in a way where we all get together. There's, I think, about 7 people in the room, and we kind of just think, we just talk, and we figure out what did we do this week that was good, and what did we do this week that we can improve on. And, we take everything, we put everything on the table, and every week is a week where we're trying to adjust. We're never like, oh, let's just do this for 3 months because it's working. Even if it's working, it still could be adjusted. It still could be better, and I think that's where we take things, and that's what I'm passionate about.
That's great. Are there any like key numbers or metrics or data that you look at where that you need to start adjusting? Do you look at like view through rate, or like to just like ratios? What are some of the numbers that you look at that kind of gives you a wake up call that you need to start adjusting?
Audience retention is super important. I mean, I think when it comes to like someone staying for a video, clicking and then staying, that is probably one of the most important things to me, because I want people to be entertained and I want people to, watch the videos and yeah. But like something that maybe isn't as it's important to like get clicks, and get views is click through rate, obviously, but like that could just be based off the title and the thumbnail. That's not necessarily saying, oh, this is a good piece of content. But I'm also looking at comments. Like if a lot of people are talking about one thing, obviously they love that thing, right? And if maybe some people, if I don't see anything related to like, say I did like a leaf blower prank on my friend, and I see 0 comments about that. No one's talking about it. No one's reposting it. It's like, oh, well, I mean, maybe no one liked it, So, yeah, I'm always listening, and I'm always watching, obviously, like things like that, like the audience retention and where people click off and where people, tend to stay the most in the video. It's always really important to kind of keep your eye on those things.
No, that's great. What do you think is going to be the next TikTok? What type of platform is going to come out and just surprise us all? I have my own opinions that I will share, but I would love to hear both of your opinions. Like, what is the next, wave of technology around content that is, gonna, I guess, shake things up in this industry?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Obviously, long form content on YouTube has been doing well for, since ever. I feel like since YouTube came out, I feel like there hasn't really been, too many ups and downs when it comes to that. But I do think when it comes to entertainment platforms, I've said this kind of before, when you go on an app to be entertained and purely that, they have a shorter lifespan. I mean, like, for example, like Vine, right? People didn't follow their friends on Vine. They didn't want to keep up with their friends on Vine. They clicked on Vine because it was kind of like iFunny, where you're like, oh, I want to be entertained for X amount of minutes or hours, so I'm going to go and click on this app. I think those have shorter lifespans. I think with TikTok, you do follow your friends. It's kind of like it's not as much as Instagram though, like with Instagram, I think it's going to stay a while because you keep up with people on Instagram. You click on it to watch people's stories that you're friends with. With TikTok, it's not quite like that. So I do think it has a little bit of a shorter lifespan, but that's interesting. I honestly, I don't know. I feel like at this point in social media, I think that like all the boxes right now are still like checked. And like, I don't know if there's room right now for something, but there could be something. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I think, I invested in a project where we launched a series with our own IP on our own platform, branded after the series, that ended up being very successful, getting hundreds of millions of views and very, profitable as well. I think the next wave of, I guess, technology when it comes to content is going to be a lot more decentralized. So we're seeing this era of the artist right now where video is very decentralized. There's tens of millions of videos being uploaded every day. I think a lot of creators might get to the point where they want to own their own data, own their own audience, and potentially get to the point of, in some ways or another, owning their own distribution, where they are not going to have to rely too much on the major platforms. And so I think the next Facebook is potentially several thousand new platforms that are owned by creators. I don't know. What does that sound a little crazy?
That's interesting.
Do you kind of view it as like paywalled content or more so just freemium, if that's the case? Because like obviously there's a lot of like paywalled content platforms.
It could be free, and there could be innovative ways of figuring out how to monetize, a community that's just connecting with you. But it seems like there's all this content out there, but I mean, look at the SVODs, like the Netflixes of the world. Like, I mean, there's all these different SVODs. There's a lot of places where you can consume a lot of content. I think creators are going to become just much more empowered, and they're going to be the ones that end up hiring a tech team, hiring data scientists, and figuring out, okay, what's the next best thing? And who knows, maybe it'll come after live streaming finally sticks more on in the West. I don't know. What are your thoughts? What are your predictions? What's the next thing, Max?
Good question. I honestly think short form content is kind of like, obviously it's at a premium. It's just like so much competition. It's insane between TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Snap. It's kind of like overwhelming to a point. Yeah, like he's smiling because we see it, and then there's obviously Triller and then a lot of other, platforms trying to get in there. I think there's always been this notion where it's like there's just too many apps. And I think, from Brent's perspective, it's like a lot to keep up with. And, I think it's like more so niche where it's like, okay, if maybe not people like Brent, but certain types of creators, maybe if you're in real estate, can post like real estate oriented content. And this is something we were talking about yesterday on a specific platform that maybe, integrates, content consumption with like, oh, like I'm actually interested in like seeing what is out there in the market, or obviously paywalled content, like you mentioned. The thing is with that, I think it's a great avenue to monetize, but like, how do you grow? And like, I know Brent views things as like, I want to grow. So like, if that doesn't, allow the potential to grow or be discovered, then it's like, okay, like, yeah, maybe I'll put some B-roll, but like, am I really going to like put a lot of energy into like building that out and growing it? And then, like there's obviously a lot of text oriented platforms coming up, which I think it's great for obviously, trying to sell things or getting people to convert. But again, it's one of those things too where it's like you can't really grow. It's more so like a CRM. So I don't know. Like I think there's gonna be like more like niche oriented things, but like I don't think it's gonna be like holy crap mainstream TikTok or YouTube just because it's such a massive barrier to entry. And to be honest, TikTok has billions of dollars behind them. And also too, there was a lane then that I think they totally exploited, but they needed billions of dollars to exploit it because it took them a while to grow. So
well, they had no intention to sell. They came in and it, you know, I think if, you know, 10 years ago, we would have assumed, okay, they're going to get acquired by Facebook or they're going to get acquired by Google, but they came in with resources. But there's a variety of platforms coming to the West from the East that have resources, hundreds of millions of dollars behind them, that are coming and going to, you know, use that TikTok playbook and try to compete. And what's exciting, I think, for you, Brent, is that it's getting to the point where I think a lot of these platforms are going to do whatever they can to bend over backwards to make sure that they maintain your content on their platform. So when things become more decentralized, you know, I believe the creators and the artists become a lot more empowered.
Oh yeah, I mean, you see it with just, you know, YouTube's been around, you know, for so long, and you see, you know, I think, you know, YouTube has a great relationship with their creators, and I think, you know, obviously they want to, you know, keep the creators happy, and I appreciate that. So if it goes that direction, which I think it's going to, you know, I think that's great for creators, you know, because you know, we get to, you know, really kind of keep this good relationship with these different platforms. But yeah, like you said, Max, a lot of short form content right now, especially on every app now. But yeah, it's definitely interesting.
Well, what do you think is going to happen with live streaming, which is the opposite of short form? Excuse me. I have a speech impediment and a stutter, if you haven't noticed. But in China, for example, there's over 100 different platforms that are relevant with the creator community out there. And a lot of these platforms are live streaming platforms. And there's a creator specifically named Shimba, who's like nicknamed the king of live streaming. He did a 12-hour live stream, and guess how much revenue he was able to drive within those 12 hours? $305 million US in 12 hours.
That's insane.
And,
oh my gosh.
And so it's one of those things where, you know, we were all freaking out when Jeffree Star and Shane Dawson launched the makeup line and crashed Shopify and made $100 million in 24 hours. I think these types of numbers are going to be happening, but it's really hard to predict how live streaming is going to become more and more relevant. You know, when it comes to, you know, the West, you know, who's going to be the winner of live streaming? I mean, TikTok has an option, Instagram has an option, Twitch is obviously killing in certain categories. So what are your thoughts on live stream?
Yeah, I mean, I see it as well, you know, and I think, you know, I'm not as familiar with live streaming. You know, I'll do the occasional, you know, Instagram live.
It feels awkward though, right? Like,
yeah,
I think there and talking.
You know, I think it some different content, you know, tailors more toward live streaming. So I wouldn't consider the content that I make kind of, you know, able to really get a massive audience on live streaming. But I do think that there is a huge opportunity there, and I think you know, if you're a creator and, you know, and especially in the whole gaming thing, you know, like that's massive, that's huge, and it's only going to grow from here. So yeah, it's super important.
Yeah, as a data and AI business that specializes in entertainment, you know, our company has been very focused on just like testing it on every platform, gathering as much data as possible from, okay, how can we predict viewership? How can we predict, watch time as well as conversions? And what we're noticing is even these smaller creators can drive significant conversions. And it might be one of those areas where, you know, more micro, you know, up and coming creators will be able to start monetizing more early because the engagement's just, it's insane. However, I'm still not finding a winner, you know, between all these different platforms. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there.
Who do you think's like ahead right now? Who do you think is like in the best position here to to take off?
I would say Twitch, and that's where we see most of our activity. We do a lot of stuff with creators on Twitch, but I don't know if Twitch is going to be the mainstream. I mean, gaming is mainstream; it's huge, and there's other verticals on Twitch that are also growing really, really fast. But I wouldn't say, the Brent Riveras, the Mr. Beasts, the Jack Rovers, like, are going to be on Twitch and making that like their biggest focus. So I think YouTube has a really good chance, and I know it's growing really well over there, and it's performed for our campaigns. But I really don't know. I think there might be an opportunity for like a new platform to rise and figure out how to do it where it works for both creators and viewers. But I think it's going to be someone that comes in that has a much more bullish rev share policy.
Yeah.
Do you see like an increase in brands wanting to advertise on live?
We are. We're noticing this with retail and also CPG products. And of course, gaming's been doing it for almost 10 years. But yeah, so there's an interest in it because what's happening, for example, in China is blowing everyone's minds here, and most big brands or Fortune 500 companies have a presence in China. And so you notice, the partnership with Walmart and TikTok. You notice, Amazon putting together a very bold, creator program. They know it's going to happen over here. Everyone's just trying to figure out, okay, who's going to have the right infrastructure to pull it off. It's going to be interesting. And I actually think, going back to like launching creators' own IP, et cetera, it'll never be one of those things where people put all their eggs in one basket. I think it's always going to have to be not an or, but and, where you're going to have to keep growing on relevant platforms and then growing, your own platform as well. We'll see if that happens. The project that I'm a part of is maybe an anomaly, but I have a feeling that being that we built that from scratch, people with a huge presence will be able to do it way better than we were ever imagined. One question I have for you, Brent. We have TubeBuddy where we have all these different creators using our tools and our platform to save time, be data driven and growing their audiences. As well as growing their revenues and trying to get just much more predictive in their success and being data driven. There's a lot of up and coming small creators on that platform. For people that are trying to be as data driven as possible, what advice would you give to these creators that have not made it yet? They're not monetizing, but they really want to make it happen.
I think it's the dirt, it's the grind. I like to use the word. I made up a word for it. It's called strat. It's like strategizing. Like you got to be stratty with it. You have to figure out. You have to test out so many different things, and so many things are not going to work. But you're going to find little things that do work, and you can piece them all together, and really figure out how you're going to grow. I think you have to be. I think it's a good mix. You do have to be, say, strat with it, but at the same time, you do have to really focus on your content and improve your content, because you can't just be one thing. You have to work smart, but you also have to put in the effort and you can't just work hard and not think about any of the analytics, but you also can't just think about the analytics. So it's a mix. And these small creators that want to grow an audience, should definitely be focused on the analytics in the beginning and throughout the career. But at the same time, they really should hone in on making their content better and just being a true content creator. Create something that they really enjoy, and it will show.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much. What advice, I would say both you and Max, would you give brands that want to work with creators? Because you get a lot of brands' interest. A lot of companies are just knocking down the door trying to work with you. I mean, we've been working with you since you were a teenager, and you've always stayed relevant, and you've always been very easy to work with. What advice can you give brands on how to better work in this space with creators?
Yeah, I think obviously, long-term partnerships, I think, flow better, not only with the creator, but with the audience, and you can see that. A long-term or a longer-term partnership I've had recently is, with Starbucks. I've been now doing stuff for them for about, 2 years now. And it's something that my audience knows I love. And even before I worked with them, I was a huge fanboy, right? And the audience sees that, and Starbucks saw that, and it was smart on Starbucks' part to be like, hey, like this is organic to your brand, and it is. And honestly, that's kind of what I look for too when it comes to working with a brand. And when both parties, I think, are on that same page, I think it does wonders when it comes to like a campaign or something that they want to, promote. So I think a brand needs to look out for creators that, mesh well with what they're trying to do. And I think that's the smartest thing for a brand.
Oh, that's awesome. What advice do you have, Max? You've done a lot of brand deals as well, and you have to do a lot of the dirty work.
Yeah, the boring part of it. I don't know. Like, I think, obviously it's becoming more and more prevalent, and so many, like, this more than anyone, Ricky Ray, like so many companies are investing in this space. Like, I just think, like, oftentimes there's great partnerships, but oftentimes it's like, there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen, whether it's like the advertising agency, brand, influencer marketing agency, and like not letting the creator breathe in terms of creatively, because like there's all these requirements and it's too manufactured. Like 10 times out of 10, like it doesn't do as well as it would otherwise. We see it time and time again. We actually correlate how many people we're dealing with to like how it performs, and like it's always like the more people, it doesn't go as well, just because like there's just more cooks in the kitchen. But yeah, like also too, like even just working with you guys, it's been fun because like Brent is like, oh yeah, like I want to give away 15 laptops or a car to someone. And I just remember we did a campaign end of last year with Just Dance. I think it was nominated for a Streamy or one of those awards, and Brent gave his friend a car, and that was really cool because like I think the content and the integration performed so well, but also like I think it made Brent happy, the brand happy, and then the viewers and the person who received the card very happy. So it was a win-win across the board. So.
Yeah, no, and that collaboration, talking to my team, was a very smooth process, and you were all very professional. It's interesting, I think, obviously one thing that's very old school about this industry is a lot of it's really focused on relationships, and it's based on relationships, and that's how Hollywood was when it first started and how it is today. And even though there's 1,000 Hollywoods, and maybe even 1 million if you include the digital creator economy, it's really big. But you got to make sure that you treat people like humans. You got to be data driven. You have to look at the data, but something where I think, and so the relationship and the data and the tech are very important. But one thing that I think is like always a missing piece, and I've talked about this before, is data-driven systems and processes. How can you have a creative environment so whoever's creating the content can best communicate the way that they know how to their audience? So what your brand does is empowers the content rather than disturbs it and turns it into a commercial. And I feel brands have really progressed in the last decade in this area. And because there's more and more brands in this space doing a much better job, and creators have never been happier, I think, working with companies. When earlier everyone was trying to figure out is really the wild, wild west. Well, it still is today, but it's a lot more refined and organized and than it was. So we talked about your creator business, and this will be my last question, I promise, because I know we have a hard stop. The first 6 months of this year, in 2021, over $2 billion was invested by investors in the creator economy. Brent and Max, what's inspiring these investors to get involved?
Personally, I just think, again, like, Max said this a couple of weeks ago, like, the number one career choice right now for like kids in school is to become a YouTuber. Everything is based off of your phone now, and it's been like that, and people have been saying it for years now, but I think it's still only going to grow. And I think that companies are still continuing to realize, kids aren't watching TV anymore. They're going to YouTube. So it's just the way it is, I think, people are investing more into it every single year. And I think it is still not at its fullest potential. And I think that there's still a lot of more room to grow here. And it's exciting.
Yeah, no, it is. Max.
Yeah, no, I would totally second that. It's interesting, like whether it's like companies we work with on the brand side or, production companies or VC funds, like all like their kids know who I guess like Brent and like the creators are, which makes it like way smoother and way easier. Like this space is just in the early innings, and I think we all know this, even though we got started a while ago collectively. I just think it's just important to like invest in like the right companies and the right people. And just because like this space is hot and it's still early, but it gets very frothy sometimes. But I think there's gonna be like a lot of winners, and the people who have really spent a lot of time for years just like building out like good companies with good people, like I think they're definitely gonna win. And obviously it's great that smarter people are coming in, because it just verifying the work that we're all doing. So
that's amazing. Well, your story is so inspiring, and you're just getting started. You're 23. You're at the beginning of your career, and you've already done so much. I'm really excited to see what you do, Brent, and what you do, Max, and where this is going to be going in the next 10 years. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And thank you so much for joining us and being a part of this podcast.
Of course. Thanks for having us. I really
appreciate Ricky Ray. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks everyone for watching. Please like this video as well as subscribe to wherever platform you're listening from, and we'll see you next time.